Hey, what is up guys? So today we are going to be talking about everything Nekroz. So if you're actually interested in building the deck, making a profit off the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because, I'm going to give you guys the heads up on what to actually pick up, or if you're just trying to understand how the heck this deck works and maybe you want to actually understand how to kind of beat the deck. Essentially, to beat the deck, you just need to stop special summons. That can definitely wreck the deck immediately. But anyways, let's go ahead and give you guys a brief introduction of the essential core that's going to be inside the Nekroz deck, because we just got Gungnir, and I think a lot of players are interested in actually playing the deck. Obviously, the deck is not completely ready because Secret Forces, which is the set that basically releases all of them, is going to be coming out in February, and we only have Gungnir. Now, Gungnir is technically an optional card, but I'll give you guys a brief effect of all the cards that essentially people will be playing. So Gungnir is totally optional, but it protects the Trishula or the Unicorn, which are the, well, it protects any of the Nekroz, but more than likely those are the cards that you're going to be bringing out. Now, the Colossalus over here, which is searchable by reinforcement of the army, essentially searches out any of the Nekroz ritual spells. The Bryanek over here lets you search out any of the ritual monsters, which is also searchable by preparation of rites. And then the Unicorn negates everything from the extra deck, and the Trishula has Trishula's effect, which is the strongest monster. It's their strong boss monster in the deck. Now, basically, all the ones I mentioned pretty much will be played in almost every build. Again, Gungnir is technically optional. Personally, I like to play it. There are different builds of the deck. In the OCG, what's been winning is there's been builds that actually can combat in the mirror match, and there's others to make it so basically once you make your monster, you win the duel. Because people are main decking multiple copies of Smashing Ground to deal with the you can't special summon because of the Jin's effect. So basically how the deck runs is it's a deck that likes to have insane consistency and being able to throw out Trishula over and over, and obviously Unicorn is actually a really strong card as well because it negates the effect of all face-up monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. So they have a lot of utility, and against Shaddoll's they're really good because they don't really make anything from the extra deck, so therefore Shaddoll's can't really go too plus with it. So I think that this will kind of dump on the Shaddol archetype, because Shaddoll's really excel once they're able to get that free Shaddol fusion from their main deck. But anyways, I want to talk a little bit more about tech cards. Again, these were really brief effects. If you want to read their full effects, go for it. Because we got so much to talk about, I figured I'd give you guys like the brief introduction to the basic monsters that everyone will be playing. Now, a lot of players were interested in picking up Ritual Busters. They thought that this was going to be the new card that's going to go up in price, the new common card. But it's a normal trap card that reads, activate only when a ritual monster is ritual summoned. Your opponent can't activate any spell or trap cards or use their effects until your next standby phase. So first off, that's really good. You're like, oh wow, that's like a cold wave, but it stops your opponent next turn too, and they can't activate any spell cards. So a lot of players like Denko Sekka is much better in most scenarios, which they are technically right on. Now, the thing with Denko Sekka, obviously people can still activate spell cards the next turn. So if you're playing in the mirror match, they can just ritual summon and just not care about Denko Sekka anyways, and then get rid of it, so then they can activate their stuff. Anyways, this is kind of only for the mirror match. The thing I don't like with Ritual Buster, though, you do have to set it. Now, the whole effect where people were thinking like, oh, this is going to be the best card for a mirror match because you activate it and then your opponent can't go for any, rituals the next turn, which is technically true, but a lot of players run the Jin release of rituals. Now, this was a card that everyone in the OCG side decked for the longest time, and I said, I don't understand why the OCG is doing this. I think it's a stupid idea to side deck this card. This is hands down a main deck card. I even threw in Mathematicians and Tour Guides because I felt like, especially when Nekroz first came out, when they were called the Nekroz, everyone was playing the deck, and in mirror match, if you just went ahead and just had this out, early on in the game, and you were able to get its effect where your opponent can't special summon, you instantly won the duel because they couldn't do anything. If they had Regeki or Dark Hole, I opted to play the build that's actually really successful now in the OCG, which is having one Gungnir and basically getting out this as fast as possible, and then being able to just protect your monster, because this has the effect that you can ritual summon this, ritual using this card from the graveyard as one of the monsters required for the ritual summon, but the main effect that you want is while the monster is ritual summon using this face up, While the monster ritual summon using this card is face up on the field, your opponent cannot special summon. So basically in the mirror match, you instantly kind of win unless they have an out to that. Now in the OCG, they've been main decking Smashing Grounds just to get rid of that. Obviously Dark Hole and Regeki are also great options, but basically once this card has the effect, the deck can't really play. Kind of like if you activate Vanity's Emptiness against the deck, sometimes the deck will just fold instantly because the deck is so consistent because they have so many cards that just search out more cards over and over. The deck does not need to actually run MSTs or any Regekis or Dark Holes or anything like that, because the deck can be played at such a consistent rate where you can just go ahead and make your card and just shut down your opponent from them even making out their cards. So you don't need to counter your opponent when you're basically saying they can't even play. So there is, like I said, two different ways to play the game. In the Nekroz archetype, you can play more of a control version where you can go ahead and reactivate or kind of be reactive against your opponent's stuff, or you can just go as fast as possible like Sonic and just not care about stuff. But Ritual Buster, I feel like it's lackluster because of the Djinn release of Rituals, because now everyone in the OCG is main decking it. Like I said, I thought it was a dumb idea to side deck it, and they finally decided Asian Ice was right, even though they probably never even heard of me anyways from the OCG. Well, actually I lied, because I did go over there and some people did know. But anyways, as far as Denko Sekka, if you really want to actually stop your opponent from activating anything, like you want your rituals to go through, I would just recommend Denko Sekka over this, because this card, the ritual has to be summoned, and on top of that you have to set it. So I find that to be a little bit too slow in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, the Nekroz archetype does not set very many cards, and the OCG, if you look at the list that have been winning, they're running like 2 Torrentials, maybe like a bottomless, but for the most part they don't actually like to play too many back rows. So I find Ritual Buster to be a card that, like, you literally set like 1 Ritual Buster or maybe 2, and you know, you're getting that high chance of them MSTing or getting rid of that 1 back row anyways. So that's why I just don't like the card personally. That's my opinion on it. But you know, if you have other arguments, I'd love to hear them. But again, you know, it does stop them from ritual summoning, but if you have Djinn, they're not ritual summoning anyways. Next up, Trial and Tribulation. Everyone was talking about this card on the forum. They're like, oh my gosh, this is the next best thing in the deck. Let me go and read its effect real quick, because it is kind of a card that I think it's more obscure. So it's a normal spell card that says you can only activate 1 of them per turn, and during the end phase of the turn this card was activated, apply the effect depending on the number of monsters you attributed from the field and from your hand this turn except tokens. So for 1, you get to draw a card. For 2, you get to add 2 monsters from your graveyard to your hand, and 3, you get to destroy up to 3 face-up cards on the field. And you're like, wow, that's so cool that you can activate all these different effects depending on what you want to go for. Now, the Nekroz archetype, they basically want to be using the Exomere and the Kaladomere, so they basically don't apply their effect on Trial and Tribulation. So Trial and Tribulation does not get that bonus effect, or the effect when you actually ritual summon using cards from the graveyard. It's from the field and your hand. You can use it from the field and you can use it from the hand, but more than likely with Exomere you want to use the cards from the graveyard, because you're going to be discarding the Necro cards. Or is it send, or is it discard? You get to yeah, it is discard this card. Okay, yeah, it's discard this card, so even if like D-Fisher's on the board, you're good to go, because it doesn't have to hit the graveyard. So basically, Trial and Tribulation will not be working in that aspect where you get to use the cards from your graveyard. So you want to be using the cards from your graveyard, essentially with the Exomere, and with the Kaladomere, you're going to be sending things from your extra deck to the graveyard, which is essentially only going to be Herald of Arclight, which then lets you add a ritual monster or ritual spell once it's sent to the graveyard. And it doesn't care how this card was sent to the graveyard, so that's why it works so well with Kaladomere. So that's why I find Trial and Tribulation not to be relevant really in the game anyways. There's also this other card, Shrit, the Caster of Nekroz, which can be used for the entire ritual summon, and also has a bonus effect that if it's tributed by a card effect, you get to add another warrior type Nekroz ritual. So I feel like the deck doesn't need Trial and Tribulation at all. I think investing in this card is not going to be the smartest thing. I don't even think I'd actually even play any of these anyways in the deck, because the deck has so much consistency anyways, and a lot of times you're going to be using like 2, if you use 2 cards, I guess you get to add the other 2, but again with the ritual, like, you're going to be getting free advantage because you don't really need those cards anyways, you're just going to be discarding them. So I just don't find it to be really necessary at all. I think it can potentially be a win harder card. In the right circumstances, yeah, it can be plus, because you get to add any 2 monsters from your grave into your hand. I was like, well, that does have a little bit of utility, but again, since you have so much consistency in the deck, it's not like you really need to re-add back the same monsters, because you can search them out anyways. That's the way I see it. Next up, I highly recommend you guys to pick up Gisky Chains for the deck, because at the moment this card's sitting at about $4. I can definitely see the card going up in price. Because I think this card is so required in the deck. A lot of players are playing 3. Some opt to play none. I mean, you definitely have the Monjus, you have the Senjus, but this card allows it free extra advantage technically. Anyways, let me go to read this card. So it's Gisky Chain. It's a level 4 monster with 1800 attack, which is, you know, not bad also. But anyways, when it's normal summon, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck. If there's a ritual monster or ritual spell, you can reveal one of them to your opponent and add it to your hand, then return the other cards to your deck in any order, in the order of your choice. So basically that can set you up for next turn as well. So with Manju and the other cards, you're able to search out a card, which is definitely still good in the game. But the thing is, being able to decide what you want to draw on the next turn can actually help out a little bit more. Plus, this card has technically more attack anyways. I know with Manju and Senju, you get to search out the specific thing that you want, but the deck has enough consistency to where I feel like it doesn't really need those cards, but definitely having another card that you contribute is good, in addition to having that ability to kind of set up your next turn is definitely good in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Even though you have the Shrit, which can be, you know, 1 card that gets out essentially your ritual monster. Sometimes you don't need to tribute this. An extra 1800 attack is not bad at all. Next up, I just wanted to mention Smashing Ground. It's a great card in the deck against the mirror match, because again, once your opponent makes a Trishula where, you know, they brought it out, they've gotten that free extra advantage, and then it's like, oh, you can't special summon, by the way. That's why a lot of players, they were doing 3 Smashing Ground, which is it is a lot, but you know, you need to draw it really fast, because if you can't special summon in the deck, you essentially lose. Next up, briefly talking about Preparation of Rites. This card is really busted in the deck. The OCG players already got the banhammer on this card pretty much. It's at 1 in the OCG, if I remember correctly. But Preparation of Rites, it lets you add a level 7 or lower ritual monster, which essentially kind of breaks the game, because you can search out Colossolus or you can search out Bryanak, which essentially lets you search out anything. So this card is super OP, and if you're trying to actually buy the card, it's very expensive right now. There's like playsets going for $100, and I'm like, really? That's insane. But I mean, it technically should be getting a reprint in the Secret Forces. At least that's what they claim. So if you don't already have these, I think that I would just wait, because it's going to be way too expensive to pick them up now. And I think the price is probably going to go up until it's on the wiki page. I don't know if there was a Konami article that talked about it getting a reprint, but apparently it is already getting a reprint in the secrets, or I'm sorry, the Secret Forces, it's the translation. So yeah, which is essentially, it kind of reminds me of like a Hidden Arsenal thing. But anyways, yeah, the Secret Forces is going to have a reprint of, it comes out with you Senjus, the Spirit Beast or the Sacred Beasts, and also the Nekroz. So this is definitely going to be a great card to have a reprint of, because it's just going way too out of control as far as the prices go. But that's essentially just what I wanted to talk about as far as the archetype, basically giving you guys a rundown of how the deck plays. If you guys want to check out a video, I'll put a link down below in the description box of a few videos. I played the deck for a while. It's very linear, so if you like combo-based decks, it's a very linear deck. Basically comes down to Trishulaing over and over. One thing that I want to mention that's important, do not make Trishula first turn, unless, of course, you have the Djinn. At one point, I was playing Mathematician to just get Djinn in the graveyard as quickly as possible, because, again, in mirror match, it's like an auto win for that. If you want to, I should give you guys a deck profile on the different builds too, but I'll do those later on this week, because we don't get this until February anyways, but it's always good to prepare and get all the cards ready. But getting out this card first turn, because, well, unless, of course, you make your opponent have a card on the field and in the graveyard, you won't be getting the effect where you get to banish 1 card from your opponent's field, hand, and in the graveyard. There has to be a card in each one of the zones, otherwise you cannot apply the effect. That's just a heads up, whereas I don't know the exact wording on Trishula, but I know with Trishula you can do it, and they don't have to have a card in each zone, because there was a loop with Trishula, which you can discard your opponent's entire hand. So essentially with the Nekroz, it is a special summon heavy deck, and you can play it, like I said, in 2 different ways. You can play more of a control version, which you can answer things, you know, whether it's like Vanny's Emptiness and other things like maybe like a Christie, or it's just something that prevents you from playing the game, or you can run it super fast and then counter your opponent by having cards like the Gungnir, which just essentially protect the Trishula, which makes it so they can't special summon anyway. So like I said, there's different ways to play the deck, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are on any things we talked about, whether it be some of the tech cards that we talked about, or if you just have anything else that you wanted to mention the archetype. But overall, I think it's a very strong archetype. It's currently the #1 deck in the OCG, so kind of what happens is essentially we follow in the OCG footsteps. Even though the OCG does have a different ban list and then have different cards, essentially most of the time it's whatever is good there is going to be good in here, unless it's exclusive like the Burning Abyss or something like the Chronomalies, which we don't have like the Nebra disc, even though that deck isn't really a meta anymore. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. Asian Eyes signing out.